All right, thank you for staying with us. This is Morning Cafe, the second tier of this particular segment and this particular show. Earlier on, we were discussing matters, state of the nation and the weekend politics and matters insecurity. But then right now, I want us to focus on matters, the mental health, and focusing now on the mental health of children from age 0 all the way to 18, as per the Constitution, according to the Constitution, when you describe a young child. And on that particular conversation is Makrin Abuka, a counseling psychologist. A very good morning to you. Morning to you. I hope you're well.
I'm good, thank you.
Right. Remember, you can always talk to us on our socials below your screens, on basically your feedback, the questions for Makrin right here. And I feel like the first question would be, if, according to the Constitution, a child is bracketed from, is it age 0, basically? From birth, basically, all the way to 18 years.
Yeah, but then when they hit 18, they're adults.
Yeah.
Technically 17.
Okay, yeah, so 17 point something there.
Yeah.
So what's the youngest age a child can suffer mental health?
Well, pretty early on. So depending on what it is, some are born with certain mental health challenges.
Okay.
And then others develop mental health challenges as they grow up. So for those who are born with it, then it's from birth. And then for those who develop it as they move along the path of life, we are looking at even as early as 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
What mostly affects mental health among now children as young as 3 years old?
Okay, so there's, broadly speaking, 2 sets of things that will affect our mental health, children and adults. So there's nature. So that includes, biology and genetics. And so if that is part of your, predisposition, then depending on how those manifest, one would have mental health challenges. And then there's nurture. So nurture is everything around the environment of the child growing up. It would be about the parental styles, it would be about the family setup, it would be in the school environment, it would be in broad societal interactions. So depending on what's happening in those spaces, one's mental health could be impacted adversely, or otherwise they'd be fine.
All right.
Yeah.
What are those red signs that a parent should be looking for when they feel like, my child, he or she is 2 years old, but then he or she is different from their sister or brother?
Okay, so one, at the very, very early ages, they're developmental milestones. So you'd expect that, say, a child of 6 months is able to hold the gaze. When you look at them, they look at you. When you smile at them, they smile back. So those are developmental milestones. Now, if those developmental milestones are not being observed, then that could be a concern, right? Then as they grow older, you'd find that they develop a flow. So there's a way you know your child to be. They're either very outgoing, they're very, cuddly, they're very playful, very inquisitive. And then you realize that there's a shift in what you consider to be the normal. Then that would be something for you to be concerned about.
Okay.
Yeah, so depending on the different environments. If it's in school, they loved school, they don't want to go to school anymore. They had friends, they don't want their friends anymore. They had activities they liked, they don't want those activities anymore. Those are indicators that something is off.
So if a parent sees some of these indicators, they should rush to maybe a psychologist or seek for treatment, or how should they go about this?
I don't think going in for treatment is like the first thing to do. It depends. It depends on what is it that you're seeing, what is the age of the child, in what physical and mental state are you as a parent, what's the family situation. So it depends. I'd say the first point of call is to look at what is the age of the child you're looking at. So if they're much younger, then by all means take them to a mental health professional, or even their pediatrician should be able to give some form of direction if it's something to be concerned about, to be attended to by a psychiatrist. As they grow older, you may want to just speak with them to the extent that they're articulate. Often they'll tell you what they are feeling. They may not be very articulate about it, but they should be able to communicate. There's this thing that is making me feel out of sorts. Mm-hmm. So that's a place to start, because if, say, it comes out that they're being bullied in school, you see. So if they're being bullied in school, that's something that you address with the school.
But then you'd find most children, and mostly again, most boys, wouldn't want to talk about that. You know, they wouldn't be free to tell their parents or guardians that, you know what, dad or mom, I was bullied in school. Yeah. How do we train children to actually talk about some of these things, and not alone bullying? There's also, you know, the whole sexual abuse by both boys and girls. Mm-hmm. How do we train them? Because at the end of the day, it will affect their mental health.
Okay, so I think a couple of things. First and foremost, it's for us to appreciate that children, generally speaking, are wired to want to please the caregivers.
Okay.
And pleasing caregivers includes opening up to them. Now, that innate desire to please caregivers sometimes is muted by the caregivers themselves in how they nurture the relationship between themselves and the child. So if the relationship between caregiver and child is such that the child does not feel safe, then they will be increasingly reluctant to share some information. Yeah? So one needs to check, am I a safe person for this child that I'm taking care of? If I am, then for sure they'll tell you everything, including when they mess up. You know, you ask them what happened, and they say, I did it. And then you handle it, you know, fairly okay. They know that they'll get repercussions, but they also know that they're loved, so they don't feel threatened.
Okay.
So that's one. The other one would be about normalizing these conversations. You see, some of these things, we tend to hush them, we tend to present like they're taboo topics. If the child comes and asks about sexually related things, we tend to dismiss them for the most part, you know, and just cut around the topic. So when we do that...
Probably some parents would say, you know, go and ask, probably go and talk to the teachers there. Right?
Yeah. So that sends the message that that's a topic we don't talk about here. Mm-hmm. So that's another thing. The other thing would be, what conversations are you having around the children? So you may be talking to somebody else, but in the presence of the child, and you speak about those things in ways that the children sort of internalize. So I'll give you an example. It's common that some people talk about the body disposition of others in not very flowery ways. You know, such and such a person is, you know, oversized, okay, or such and such a person is very small, and then not very kindly, you know, and that I wouldn't like that, you know, things like that. So if I'm having such kind of a conversation, say with a friend over the phone, and my child is there, it may appear harmless. Now, if you fast forward, and then this child is maybe into preteen or in teenage, and they now are adopting a different body formation, that which they had me say, yeah, maybe what they are experiencing. And so they get into that space of, oopsie, I don't like myself, mommy doesn't like me, what am I going to do? It's a panic state.
Because of what they had.
Because of what they had. So you want to be very measured in what you're saying at any point in time. You know, are you speaking things that will be building, you know, the confidence of these children?
Yeah.
And if we really, really must have these conversations, because it's a humanist thing anyway, can we have them away from the kids?
Okay. In the book, you were mentioning about being a safe parent, but then how does a parent strike the balance between being a safe parent, but then at the end of the day, you ensure that your authority in the house is felt?
It's a process, yeah. So safety is about enabling the child to feel that they can be themselves, notwithstanding. you want to give this child unconditional love. You see, I love you notwithstanding, whether you made a mistake or not. When you made a mistake, we are talking about the mistake, not you. So that becomes a thing, you know. What are the guiding principles around our interactions and the expected behaviors? Do you discuss those things with your child? From as early as they're able to articulate themselves, you're able to set rules with them. Set rules with them, you know. As they grow older, they become more and they become more complex. As they're younger, they are fewer and they're simple and direct. So if you're involving them in that process, then they know. They even know when they are doing good, they know when they are off, they know what the consequences will be, you know. You also need to be an affirming parent.
So how should parents, go about the whole setting of rules? Because you might have sort of like the whole 10 commandments, wake up, brush your teeth and all that, wash dishes and all that. Maybe you have 10 of them plastered on the fridge there, maybe in the kitchen, and the children there know these are the 10 commandments of this house. But then if you do not do this, this is the repercussions. How should the parent go about maybe the whole rewarding of this and maybe punishing?
So say you have the 10, like you say, the 10 which you have set in consultation with the child, right? So
there should be a consultation.
Yes, in consultation with the child, because they are the people who need to enforce those rules, isn't it? So unlike social rules where some of us are not consulted, they are put upon us. So like if you are a driver, there is a code of conduct, there is a traffic act and what is expected of you as a driver.
And you must
However,
adhere to it,
as you go to driving school, these things are made known to you. It's not like it's just out of the blues you're expected to stop when the lights are red. You are taken through the process, So too with the kids. So you have your 10 commandments that you have, come up with together. There is also the value systems. What are you as a parent trying to project into your child as the values you'd love them to adopt? Because behavior often follows values. Premised on my values, this is how I manifest the values in my actions. So the principle of why those rules are there need to have been articulated. Yeah? Then you are not just about scouting for mistakes. Because you have 10 rules, I'm looking to catch you. Hey, that's not it.
You're cleaning the kitchen and this isn't as clean as I want it to be.
Yeah, So there's noting that it's not been done to the expected level.
Yeah.
And then there's also appreciating that this child actually took time and washed all the dishes, including this sufuria that they didn't do too well. And then you want to check, is it something that perhaps they don't know how to do?
Yeah.
So can you show them?
Right.
Show them how it ought to be done,
Okay. Let's shift now from the house. The safe there, they have the whole 10 commandments in there. But then now to a whole sort of quote unquote a wild environment. In the schools, which in most of right now, this particular generation, most parents are not present with their children. It's mostly the teachers. The teachers sort of know this particular child better even than the parents.
True.
So how now that particular shift of now in the schools? Do you feel like schools now are equipped, even as the whole the government is trying to have education reforms? Do you feel like schools are equipped to have mental health conversations with children and let them know that it's actually okay to talk about how you're feeling?
I think there's room for improvement.
Okay.
And I also feel that given the resources that the schools have, for the most part, they're doing the best that they can. So they're trying to do the best with that which they have, And then you also need to appreciate that those who are running the schools are part of the home environment. So if the teacher is potentially an unsafe parent at home, highly probably there will be an unsafe person at school for the child too. right? If the teacher, as a parent, is not feeling confident enough to have these mental health related conversations with their own children, chances are they are unlikely to have that confidence to have it with their students as well. Yeah. If they don't have the knowledge, then they don't have the knowledge. Often they will do what they know how, you know. So this is how I was raised, this is how I've seen things happening, this is how I've done things with my past students, this is what has worked, and therefore I think that will work for Macrin.
Okay.
And sometimes it doesn't quite work for Macrin because there are certain peculiarities for Macrin that need some adaptation. See? So they try, I'd say they try, and then there's room for improvement.
But then back then when I was in school, I don't know about you because I'm pretty sure time was really you're back in the day. When I was in school, we used to have counseling, classes. That's in primary school. In secondary we didn't have that. In primary school we did have counseling classes. The teacher who would come also teaches maybe 7 and 8 other subjects. So in the class, a 30-minute class, we just be taken through theory and write notes. And at the end of the day, we go for lunch or maybe games. And at the end of the day, I personally never really felt like there was much of an impact. There wasn't really the space to talk about maybe how your day was, because I think some children will just want to talk about how the day was, how they ate a whole plate of ugali, and it was nice to them. How should schools be tackling some of these issues? Because I believe in some private schools that actually manage some of this, they had one person who was he or she managed matters counseling, and it was a whole session, and they actually dug deeper. Instead of just taking through theory.
Yeah, so what you describe is really not counseling, it's more like a guidance session or even a lesson. Because counseling is what you desired and didn't get. An opportunity to speak. You speak your heart out, to feel heard and to feel understood, to hear what others have to say, to normalize your experience, to know that, kumbe, it's not just me, there's other people who are living the life like I am, So that broadly is what counseling is about. It enables you to speak your truth. Now, in the school setup where there are designated teachers as a guidance and counseling teachers, I think it's an attempt to address the challenges that the students have. Some of the teachers now I know have some basic training, some even advanced training in matters counseling, so they are able to conduct the sessions as they ought to be done for optimal outcomes. For the fact that they are teaching other subjects and then they're coming in as counselors, I guess it's making do with what you have, to the extent that some of them may not be able to handle the confidentiality that is necessary around matters counseling. I think is unfortunate, and part of why those who take the step to speak to the counseling teacher and then they hear the story they told the counseling teacher someplace else in class with another teacher, then that becomes really catastrophic for the child. But I believe for the most part they try.
All right. Briefly, before we take a 9 a.m. short break, what are the fun ways to have a 10-year-old boy or girl open up, with you? What are the fun ways and interactive ways to do that?
Okay, so for children, broadly speaking, and even going into teenage, the way to get to their truth is through play. If you have a conversation like we're having, you and I here,
they'd zone out.
Not really. I mean, a few of them would be able to articulate what is happening with them, but for the most part, there's a guardedness that happens, and then there's also the part of, they're still developing, so they don't have everything that helps them to say what they need to say. So if one wants to get to the heart of what the child is experiencing, positive, neutral, or otherwise, is to engage in play activities. So as a teacher, you do those games. As a parent, you want to plug into what it is that they like to do. In those moments, they will say things, they'll speak from their heart. And it's not like you're interrogating them, you just play, and then in the process of play, they'll say, oh, so-and-so did this, oh, I did this, and I felt that this way. You did this, mom, and it sucked. Daddy did this, and it was terrible, or I really, really loved it, all those things. And so how they play, I think, varies from child to child. Some of them would be, artistic, and they'd be doing crafty things. So the ones who draw, they usually express themselves a lot in their art. The ones who are doing the other things, they'll speak to what they're doing, or speak to what they're feeling. Yeah. So you want to embrace play.
Right.
And you do it in a way that makes sense for them. You do it in their time. You don't say, okay, so now I want to get to the heart of what you're thinking. Let's go play.
Indeed.
No, not quite.
Right, sorry to cut you short there. Before we take a short break, there's a particular comment here. Someone says, Kinjuru says, back in the day, it was really hard to open up, even as you're saying, dad and mom, this sucked. But then right now, children are able to even, go up to their parents and say, I don't like what you're doing. But then we'll actually get to that and the whole link of parents and the children and even other people who do relate to them. You're watching Morning Cafe, matters mental health of young children. We'll be right back with that. Keep your feedback coming in.
You are watching TV47, the home of untold stories.
You looking for a college that will impact your practical skill sets? Trisent School of Medical Health and Science Technology offers market-driven programs in diploma and certificate levels in the schools of health sciences, social sciences, applied sciences, and business and informatics. Enroll for our January 2023 intake to enjoy seamless student experience. You deserve qualified faculty leadership to set a good guide for your career. Trisent School of Medical Health and Science Technology, partners in your journey to excellence.
Kwa muonekano wao, hauwezi ukajua walichopitia. Kwa sura zao, wanaweza kukaa wameng'aa, lakini nyuma ya hao kuna historia na story. Katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakupa nafasi kutangamana nao kila siku ya Alhamisi kuanzia saa 1:30 kuendelea. Nami Elizabeth Mtuku.
You are watching TV47, the home of untold stories.
All right, thank you for staying with us. This is Morning Cafe and discussing matters mental health on children from birth all the way to around age 17 before they attain the whole age of being an adult, the age of 18. And we're discussing this with Macrine Abuka, who is a counseling psychologist. Before the break, we were discussing matters the whole, how to open up for a child and how to make it interactive. Mm-hmm. But then let's talk about the whole link. Will you say there's a missing link between now from the child to the parent, and from the parent, because not all times the parent is with the child. This child might be with maybe a guardian who maybe the child is doing homeschooling, or rather a teacher during classes and all that. Is there a missing link where children can't actually talk about the mental health and actually talking about the whole mental health?
I think it depends. Yeah, so parents try a lot to give the best for their kids. Yeah, and then we found ourselves in a situation where, for the most part, we are out there trying to eke out a living so that we can attend to the basic needs of life for ourselves and the children. And then there is the needs of the child, one of which is attention and presence. Yeah? And for some parents, there's a sense that I'm not quite available to, participate with this child effectively, thinking that maybe I need a whole day or a whole morning or a whole afternoon. Well, that is good. If you can do a whole day, nice. If you can avail yourself half a day, nice. What the kids need is some level of consistency of, very dedicated attention. And some studies have shown as little as 15 minutes in a week is enough. So you can decide how you want to split your 15 minutes. 2 minutes here, 3 minutes there, or 15 minutes straight the whole week. So if 15 minutes in a week is able to give you that bonding opportunity with your child, it means you can actually do more, you see. So if you are able to create that, then it helps a whole lot. There's also the part of how are we modeling the things that we desire of them. So we want good mental health for our children. Are we nurturing our own mental health? You see, are we having conversations about mental health? Are we normalizing the things that go sideways for us? If you had an interaction and you are unhappy about how the things played out, are you able to talk about those things in an age-appropriate way with your child? If you lose someone who is near and dear to you and you're feeling sad, do you talk about that with your children? They need to know that mommy gets sad, perhaps even see you cry, because they do get sad and they look up to us. So if they're not seeing us showing those kinds of emotionality, their sense is to feel like there's something wrong with them. Why am I feeling this way? Why am I demonstrating my feelings this way? And these people that I look up to, they just look fine in the face of everything. So we want to normalize.
And I believe most of our African parents, they're good in not really showing emotions or just actually hiding them.
Yeah. So it really helps that we are able to model these things, even when we are happy. What are you happy about?
Right.
Can the child know, I'm happy that I met with my friend and we had a good time. We just sat and talked and laughed, and that's fine. I was just sitting down and just lazing around and relaxing, and that was so refreshing. That helps, because some of us were socialized to the fact that not doing something is laziness. Yeah? So
you always have to be doing something in an African home.
You need to be busy.
Yeah.
So that drive for busyness is problematic at some level. I mean, there's some good busyness, and then there's just the sideways things. Yeah.
I want us to focus on, and I believe you had seen this particular video, a video that was trending on social media in a primary school in Kisii County, where some young boys, we wouldn't obviously have that particular video now because of the privacy of the young children. But then these particular boys were forced to do some homosexuality activity by the teachers, and the teachers were recording this particular video. Speak on the whole impact this even having this particular video out there has on these young boys, because we will see the faces of these young boys.
Yeah, so I think it was quite unfortunate, that particular incident, and then thinking broadly about what is the motivation of those who sought to have those boys engage in that activity. I would imagine in part it was to get them to learn that what they were doing wasn't right. Now the how of teaching that lesson was totally off. Now what I'd like to draw attention to is children engaging in sexualized behavior usually in very, very, very many instances, are children who have been subjected to sexual abuse. They have been exposed to sexually inappropriate content, and then they tend to play it out. Yeah. So
the whole case of monkey see, monkey do.
Yes. So it's highly probable that these particular children either saw the kind of acts that they are purported to have engaged in, or those acts were performed on them. Yeah, and it's a way of externalizing the distress that arises from that indecent exposure. So the right way to go about it, if you see a child engaging in sexualized behavior, you want to get to understand from them what really is happening. You know, create a safe space to enable the child to open up so that you can put them on the path of healing. Because the ages of those kids, I would imagine 10, 11, thereabouts, they probably have a good sense of sex and sexuality. What should be age appropriate, they know, because part of it has been taught in school anyways. So that these particular actions were things that they were found engaging in, they also know that it isn't consistent with what is expected of them.
Yeah.
So if you want to guide them, you want to correct them, that kind of exposure is not the most effective. In fact, that kind of exposure is a form of parenting by shaming, which we do a lot. Yeah, so those particular individuals, you know, they did it, it was captured on video. Most unfortunate, the video then went viral. It may be said that for the fact that it was recorded, then, you know, it became known and something would be done about it. And then again, who knows? You know, it's in the hands of so many people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how does counseling, how should the counseling be approached for such young boys? And how do we again now integrate them back to the society so that maybe, you know, maybe right now they're maybe 10 years, give or take. Maybe 10 years later, they'd be like 20 years. They'd be adults there.
Yes.
This particular video will still be on the internet. How do we integrate them back to the society?
So usually you'd find that if such children are brought in for, you know, psychosocial support, there'd be a lot of engagements with them, you know, first of all, to help them, you know, just externalize whatever distress they have, you know, and then to equip them with skills on how to cope with the challenges that those particular experiences would present to them in the present and into the future. Part of that would be a matter of acceptance that, hey, this happened. It was not a good experience. And then here we are.
So basically acknowledging that it happened, then dealing with the issue.
Yes, so there's an acknowledgement that it happened.
Okay.
And then there is now getting, you know, skills, a range of them, on how to move forward. Because we are not our experiences per se. You know, if you think about each and every individual, we have had many sideways moments, many of them. And those are not us. They are part of who we are, but they are not us. So too, a child who is sexually abused is not their sexual abuse. That is something that happened to them. And then there are other things, you know, they are loving, they are kind, they are, you know, helpful, they are studious, they are, you know, there's a whole lot about them aside from that not very pleasant experience. So when they go through the therapy session, they are able to come to terms with this is what happened, and then this is how we move forward.
All right, and this isn't just the first one. This is just a tip of the iceberg. There are other cases which have been recorded, are on the internet, and some haven't been recorded. Speak on the whole impact of social media right now for you know, mental health of the young children. Is it will it be advised that you know, young children to, you know, basically have them, you know, on air, and rather on social media, actually talking about this on social media, or rather just, you know, keep them away from social media?
I think it depends. At what ages are we talking about? You know, the younger they are, the less the need for them to be in social media, really. The older they become, the more the opportunities to expose them to social media in age-appropriate ways, because that is their reality now. We are in the social media age. So to deny a child access to social media is to deny their reality, broadly speaking. What you want to do is to provide some framework that provides some safety. Yeah? knowing that there are predators out there, just the same way there are predators in, in physical real life. Yeah, so too are they on social media. So to create awareness to them, so that when those people show up, they know, they're able to tell, this one is suspect. Let them have a safe person, at least one safe adult that they can speak to. If they're in doubt, they can go and say, hey, I saw this and I feel this, what do you think? So we want to encourage the young ones also to have healthy relationships with people who are older than them, who they can plug into every so often, because that helps to put a lot of grounding for them.
Right.
Yeah.
And speaking of matters policies, do you think the policies that we have in the country, they are sustainable to ensure that such conversations are actually there? Or do we need a restructure of the policies that we do have?
Broadly speaking, the policies are, well intended. The enforcement of them, I think, is a matter of debate, just as other policies are, And then there's the opportunity for individuals, to the extent that they can, to implement the portion that they can, So I could sit here and say, the government A, B, C, D. And then on the other hand, I could take that which the government has given as a framework, and then as a person and with people of like minds, implement something that, brings that policy to life.
Right.
Yeah. So, for example, like the video you're talking about,
Yeah.
there are those who received it and they really sambazed it. Yeah. And maybe they had good intentions, I don't know. And then there are those who know that anything that has children exposed in indecent ways ought not to be something that you circulate widely.
Yeah.
So you'd find, if I receive something like that, I should not, forward it beyond my inbox. In fact, I ought to delete it. If I want to get any action, DCI is available. They're doing a good job, So let them know and then allow them to do their work, So implementing it in our own small ways. If there are elements of the policies that we feel need changing, then there are paths for doing so. Do memoranda through your, political leaders, the relevant associations like that. Yeah.
And as a counseling psychologist, I believe you do interact with the statistics of mental health in among children. Between when you look at between boys and girls, who are more affected, and demographically also, how do these numbers maybe look?
It depends. So there are some mental health challenges that are more prevalent with boys than girls.
Okay.
And then as they get into adulthood, it sort of averages out. So for example, the mood disorders, the girls are more represented there than boys, right? When it comes to depression and suicidality, boys have higher incidences of successful suicides, with girls having higher instances of attempted suicides, for example, you see. Then neurological conditions that have a bearing on mental health, like ADHD, you find that boys are more represented there than girls are. When you look at conditions like eating disorders, you find that girls are more represented than boys are. So it depends. It depends on what condition are we looking at.
Right.
Yeah.
And I believe even on matters, there was a whole report by the KNDHS on matters, gender-based violence, and there are quite worrying numbers on, among children. This again impacts the mental health.
Yeah.
Do you feel like we do have enough safe houses in the country and personnel to actually deal with such kind of cases?
No, I don't believe that we have enough safe houses to deal with the number of cases of gender-based violence, and I guess that's a situation that would unravel as we go along. And then I think beyond that, there's opportunity for the common mwananchi to have an appreciation that this gender-based violence thing is not right, because there's an extent to which gender-based violence is sort of normalized. Alipiga tu coffee. I mean, what's a big deal? It ought not to happen. You know, it ought not to happen. The parents were unhappy and they were shouting at each other, and the children are there. So children are affected by violence directed at them and directed at others around them. So if parents are going at each other in the presence of the children are adversely affected. And up to age preteen, like 9 years thereabout, their general orientation is to own the actions that happen to them and around them. So what that means is, if good things are happening, they believe it's because they are good children. If bad things are happening to them or around them, they believe that they are bad children. So it means if their parents are fighting, they are taking responsibility for the fights of the parents. They're feeling that they are causing the parents to fight.
Some of these things, taught in school, though, the whole, gender-based violence and the impacts in the curriculum.
I'm not aware. Maybe with CBC, that's something.
Okay.
But I really am not aware. I don't know.
But it's definitely something. Do you feel like it's something that should be actively taught to young children? Yes.
There's a lot of value in teaching about sex and sexuality and things that talk about safety in relationships, because gender-based violence is really about relationships gone sour. People are doing relationships in ways that are not sustainable. And often they're doing it in the ways they know how, So I probably grew up in an environment where there was violence as a way of resolving disagreements. I will use violence to resolve my disagreements in my relationship. I probably grew up seeing my folks fighting and say, my mother just tolerated it. Now that I'm in this, violent relationship, I also tolerate. You see?
Right.
So I'm doing what is familiar, for lack of, the knowledge of the alternative for the most part.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not to blame, it's just to say that if the information is not actively available and in abundance, then, people will suffer.
Right. And how, as a country, what should we do to improve the mental health of children?
I think for the part where it's genetic or biological, we really don't have much to do. It's accept and then create an environment that gives them the best possible outcomes.
Okay.
For the nurturing part, I think there's a lot. One, parents need to find sustainable ways of managing their stress, because a stressed parent is not a safe parent. They will be exploding, they'll be erratic, they'll be inconsistent. So you want to find ways of managing your stress as a parent consistently. Parenting is, it's been said that there's no school of parenting. Now I know that there are trained people who are offering, training on parenting strategies that have been found to work.
Yeah.
So it helps to own up to the fact that we are not experts, and then go and get parental training. So that is something. The other thing would be to make it our business to be loving unconditionally to these children. You don't want your child to feel that they are only loved, they're only seen when they perform well in school, which is like at the end of midterm, at the end of the term. So in between, there's nothing.
Okay.
They need to feel loved even when there's no exam, even when they don't do well in the exam, even when they make mistakes at home.
Right.
They need to feel loved. You need to affirm them. Get into the habit of seeing your child for who they are and acknowledging them. Sometimes they're different than us. So I may be a bit introverted and my child is very outgoing, and I find them a lot. And I want to make them be like me. Tulia, not very effective, accept who they are and help them to thrive in who they are. So that they feel that I may be different to mom this way, to dad this way, and it's still fine. It's just different, it's not wrong. So that is an important thing, We also need to demonstrate to them our humanness.
Okay.
Let's not show up as super mommy, super daddy, because we are not. If we are wrong, let's accept that we are wrong. If we don't know, let's tell them, I don't know, allow me to go and consult. Go consult and come back. Don't go consult and then go kabisa. Like your topic tulimalizana nayo. Go consult, come back. Because in doing so, you're helping them to know it's okay to ask questions, and it's okay when you're asked questions to accept that you don't know. So hadi wao wakiuliza at some other time and they don't know, they'll be okay to say they don't know, rather than, creating a story that doesn't make sense.
Right. Briefly, your parting shots and where can we reach you and all that?
So I practice counseling under Nawiri Center for Health and Wellness. Yeah, I see individual clients. My specialization is children, so I will see the children and their families in Lavington.
Right.
Yes.
Anything you'd like to add briefly?
I'd like to say that when we see children struggling with mental health issues, for the most part, we are keen to know what's happening in the family setup, because the family setup influences a lot of what then manifests as children's, mental health challenges.
All right, thank you for that. Macrina Buka, counseling psychologist, speaking on matters mental health. I can see some of your feedback and a lot of it on Facebook. I wouldn't really have the time to look at it, but then keep on talking to us. And remember, today is International Condom Day. And right here, TV47 will be giving you an exclusive event on all that at Mount Kenya University grounds, courtesy of the National Syndemic